Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. So happy that you're all joining us again for another week of conversation with some of my friends and buddies and acquaintances in the entertainment industry. And I'm so excited to get our guest here today. I first met her through Jose. I think it was about 7 years ago. Time passes so quickly. She came to a party I threw at my home in Hollywood, and she brought the house down with this a cappella number. She just started singing. I don't know if she just started singing it, but I was in the other room, and all of a sudden everyone ran to the piano to hear her. And she's been so busy. She's a musician. She's a jet setter. Never know where she's gonna be. Please welcome my buddy, Maya Azucena. Hi, Maya.
Wow. Hi. You know something that's so sweet? I forgot that I sang at that. It's so interesting. I love hearing your memory of it, because I remember being in this nice apartment and meeting all these wonderful people and having these great conversations, but that I sang, I completely forgot.
You did. I remember you and then another buddy of mine, Daniel Oberman. I think he started the party. He just like out of nowhere just sat down at the piano and just started playing and singing. And I think it just, music is contagious.
It is, and beautiful to have an actual piano in a space. It just feels like you want to do something,
Totally. So now, where are you right now? Because I feel like over the years since then, we've tried to connect. And you're in New York, I'm in LA, you're in New York, you're in Turkey. I never know where in the world is Maya Azucena.
There's times where somebody will say to me, I will answer your question, but there's times where somebody would say to me, like, aren't you in Croatia right now? And I thought you were in South Africa. And I'm like, yes, like no explanation, because I have literally been able to be in, like, let's say 3 countries in a 48-hour window, legitimately doing things. And then the person's like, well, how are you going to be at the gig? I'm like, I'm at the gig. If I didn't cancel the gig, I'm at the gig. Like, you don't worry about it. You just show up. But I'm in Brooklyn. This week. I'm actually excited to be home, and I'm preparing myself for a concert event that I'm doing, I think the 14th. Yeah, but I've spent quite a lot of time out of the country during the pandemic times. I just, I was doing work already in Turkey, and I just kind of stayed over there.
What was it like there? What was the pandemic madness like there? I started the pandemic in Las Vegas, and then I spent the rest of it in Palm Springs. What was your experience of the pandemic like abroad?
Well, first of all, you got to remember that it wasn't just the pandemic, because being a New Yorker and being American, like, I was feeling and very connected with this like rise in white supremacy, this Trump madness, the polarity of the country,
Oh yeah, because like George Floyd was happening at the same time.
Yes. So all of that, it's like, so like, I'm deeply psychically connected to all of this was happening. And then pandemic hit right in the midst of that. So while I was away, it felt like it gave me a little bit of wiggle room to let the pressure out.
Mm-hmm.
This feeling, that heavy, sad grip, that this angst and anxiety that people being so sad and upset and angry, and it's like being outside of it, even though I'm so connected to it, it just physically being away, it gave me a little bit of levity. And then the actual pandemic, in the way it hit in Istanbul is a city like New York.
Right.
But there was much less hype and stress. people just were just more like calm about it. It just wasn't this hysteria. There was like hysteria in America.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you attribute that to?
I think that, naturally, it was really, a lot of people actually died from it. So it's not like, oh, you can take it lightly or you should take it lightly. So it was a real thing. It is a real thing. But I think that there are opportunists that when they see a tragedy, they jump on it in order to make money. And so I think that making sure that the flames were high and hot all the time, and that has to do with the way it was presented in the news and the storylines and everything. It was all meant to keep us in a state of like absolute terror. Then when you're in that space, it's very easy to get you to commit to spending money on the things that, that people make money off of,
Totally. Didn't someone get arrested? I feel like someone got arrested for like hoarding and then resell like supplies. Like I feel like someone got arrested for hoarding like hand sanitizer and such, and then trying
masks
to on like Amazon for like 4 times like the actual manufacturing price for them.
Yeah, people are just can be ridiculous with their greed and stuff. But so why do I even mention that? It's just more that it felt like people were not fanatical. They were just doing what they needed to do. They, you did the curfew. There's times you're not allowed to go out for, let's say, a week unless you're going to the grocery store, these types of things. And people just did it, but it was kind of chill. And I think it just got really bad after about a year because everybody who wasn't earning money was like still not earning money. And then that's when everybody starts to like, okay, enough is enough. Like you can go along with the idea of like, we can quarantine, but then people start to freak out when you can't feed your family,
Totally. Well, so just your time during the quarantine, you said it was a lot more chill than it was here in the US. Did you find it to be a very creative time for you? I mean, I know I found it to be an incredibly creative time to just literally but just sit with my thoughts and my, whatever's going in my mind and just kind of create things. Tell me about that.
You're right. I think basically not having a schedule, or being able to create your own schedule, but not to be on anyone else's schedule. I felt like I could luxuriate in like my thoughts, and I wrote a lot. I did write a lot. I wrote most of the songs of my new project in that time. And just finding ways to express, what feelings are being felt. Because another thing that you cannot do when you're sitting still is you can't avoid your feelings.
100.
So you kind of marinate and you're processing and you're paying attention to not just your feelings, you're paying attention to your body. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who tried to deaden themselves with, became alcoholics during the pandemic or something, but I didn't go that far. I think I more or less tried to be healthy.
Yeah. What was it like? And then I want to talk about happier things other than the pandemic, but since you brought it up, it's now I'm wondering, so what was it like talking about like, being an American abroad, having all of these kind of emotional ties to a lot of what was going on outside, within the States at that time, outside of the pandemic, and being in this place where there's like travel bans and no one really knew what was happening with, COVID and what that means. Was there like a part of you that felt stranded at all? Like, oh my goodness.
Never.
Like,
no,
okay.
I did not regret the decision for even one time, any second of it. I was so happy that I did not, right. The travel bans were giving you kind of like a countdown and you could get back home to your city before the travel ban. I was like, I'm good. I mean, what was I going to do? I was going to race home to a Brooklyn apartment and be stuck inside of this Brooklyn apartment with very unhappy New Yorkers during white supremacy celebrations.
Happy time.
What was I going to get? And then spend 7 times more money on basic items while not making money. I didn't, no. And it wouldn't have been, I couldn't have hung out with my mom. It wouldn't have been like, oh, I'll be spending time with my family. You had to isolate.
Yeah.
So I was isolating in a place where I felt great, and I was chilling.
So on to happier things. I want to know just more about you and your musical journey. Were you always a singer, or is that something that happened or that you came to a little later?
But thanks for asking. No, I never had a question. I always, from as early as it was possible to think about identifying myself, I always was an artist. And nobody made me be an artist. I didn't grow up with like a household of musicians, I just was singing since 4, I would say minimum age of 4. I think I did my first play when I was 4. And then ultimately it was like in every school production, and like getting like a lead role in this musical theater part or whatever in school. And then I became old enough to take acting classes because I was interested in pursuing acting. I felt like music was always innate, and then the acting was going to be like the career. This is when I was younger.
Right.
So I was like, the music is something just I do, it's just always there. And then I went to Performing Arts High School, LaGuardia in New York, and you have to select a major. I got in for acting, and I got in for singing. And I said, you know what? Let me study my weakness. I thought singing was my weakness. And I studied opera in high school. And while I was studying opera, I was auditioning for like TV shows and all this kind of stuff. And then there came a point at which I'm like, paraphrasing my life at this moment. There came a time where I felt like, from spiritually speaking, that it was made clear to me that music is my calling. Mm-hmm. It's going to be my power and my way of helping the world, and my way of expressing who I am in the world.
Was there some moment that made that happen, like a specific performance or something that, like, I'll give you an example. I too went to an arts high school, and I was a music major as well. I was a voice major as well. And I remember one of the things that put me kind of on the path of like jazz and cabaret and kind of going down that line was we had a fundraiser, and I remember singing A Night in Tunisia. And the very next day, which was like a Saturday afternoon, I got a call from the head of the music department who said, oh my goodness, the way you were turning phrases, like, I think that this is your style. And that I remember distinctly being like one of those moments that kind of pushed me in a specific direction, or made me really, really explore a specific direction. Was there like a moment that made you realize, oh, this is my call?
Yes. And first of all, I wanted to reply to what you just shared. It's almost like there's a switch inside of you that's just waiting to be flipped up. In other words, all the workings were already inside of you. And like that affirmation was just somebody flipping on the light switch. Mm-hmm. Because it didn't make you more or less of who you were than in one day. It just made it clear to you, yes, you know what I mean? That affirmation from the right person at the right time, like, lit up the room, and you were like, yes, absolutely. Like, this is what I should do, but you needed that person that you respected, or that person that was placed in the right place at the right time to flip that switch. And then you just walked into your, like purposefully walked towards it.
Completely, 100%.
Because I can't imagine if you were absolutely not ready like that day when he said it, it wouldn't have meant something to you.
It just would have been like a comment. Yeah, totally. Like, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my case, it was so intense. I had already been singing and acting and doing all these types of things and pursuing it willy-nilly, kind of just trying to find myself. And entertainment industry is about like getting put on, and who do you know, and do you have an agent, and do you have this, that, and the other thing? Do you have good headshots? I mean, things you stress about. So you don't always think about it from a soul perspective. So separately from me pursuing a career, I was in New York when September 11th happened, when the attacks when the Twin Towers came down. When that tragedy hit New York, us New Yorkers were so depressed and hit really, really affected us psychologically. It's like the city that never sleeps, it was like shut down. It was like the biggest, imagine like a huge truck hitting a person and it just stops everything. That's how this whole city felt. And I have already been an empath, meaning like I feel people's tragedies and pains deeply and I feel it personally. And I always have felt that since I was a child. Like I want to help them. How can I help? What can I do? But this was the biggest version of it ever because it was my home.
Right.
And I, along with everyone that felt depressed, I felt like, what can I do? What can I do? I'm only one person. What can I do? I'm not a fireman. I'm not a doctor. What can I do? And it was like this wash came over my being, my soul, like a wave. And it was like I have to sing. I have to sing. I have to go out there and I have to sing. And why? It's because it was like I was reaching with all of my soul for something within me to use as a tool. And what I have is inside of me as my tool is this gift.
Right.
And it is my superpower. It was like an inception of like realizing I can make fire in my hand and what can I use this for? And it was like, and from that point forward, I said, wow, like if singing is my way to help the world, then I will use it purposefully. I will use it consciously apply my tool, my gift as a means of helping others. And then I started writing songs in this way. And then I would show up at every charity, every benefit, every environment where my singing could put a voice to a mission or a cause or a person in need. And then it became kind of organically became my brand. Like I was like the person, people say, hey, like you have a benefit or you have a women's empowerment thing, you need to call Maya Azucena. And through the years, it just has I have become all this thing, but it started through that entrance point of being clear that I want to use my voice as a way to help the world. And so I'm in an industry which I had to learn all of the details about recording professionally and making album covers and this kind of thing. But it exists side by side with like what's basically a calling and a soul purpose.
Right. That makes wonderful sense. Is there any one moment that you can think of, whether it was the one performance or one project that you felt like most closely aligned to that soul purpose, where you're like, oh my goodness, I'll never forget this particular experience? And it was where like I felt like, what I feel I'm called to do and like what my heart says I need to be doing and what I want to affect. In this particular moment, I felt that happened in the best way or in the most way.
That's a great question. I've had many of them, but I'll share one that's like so outstanding for me also. So I have had all these philosophies about, music is obviously a universal language. It kind of, permeates across all divides. It gets through the doors and the windows and the walls, and it like unifies people. You can find people singing the same song, no matter what their political preferences are or what their cultural upbringing is, and they'll all know the same words to the same songs, right? It's so incredible. So I had been invited to be a guest singer with a rock star from the country of Croatia. And I've since done many, many, many shows and concerts with him, but he plays in these massive arenas. And the first song that I ever collaborated with him on went on to win 2 or 3 of their Grammys, kind of like the top music award of their country.
Mm-hmm.
And he invited me to come with him to do some arena shows. And I was invited to a country called, Bosnia in Sarajevo. And this was a while ago. So they were still healing from the war zone that they were in. And I played this arena with him, which was like more than 10,000 people, full sports arena.
Wow.
And my part of the song that I sing is, don't give up, don't give up, sister. Everything is going to be all right. Like, just don't give up. And when I went out to this audience, I felt so clearly to myself that this entire audience of 10,000 people had all lost someone during the ravages of war. I'm cutting things out, but like driving through the city to get to the arena, it was like you could still see holes from bombs and automatic weapons in all the buildings, and all the little parks and grassy knolls that you saw while you're driving through the streets. You realize that every single grassy knoll was turned into a cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And then when you get to the arena had been newly renovated because it had been bombed in. And then they pointed to the back where the parking lot was. The massive sports arena parking lot had been turned into a cemetery.
Wow.
So when I'm going to this gig, I am seeing and feeling all of the loss that they've endured, and they're coming to see a concert. And I get to go on stage in front of 10,000 people and say, don't give up. Everything's going to be all right. Don't give up. And I'm saying these words to people who I just sensed really needed it. And I sing like, I'm singing it like as if someone's life depends on it. And I'm looking at it, 10,000 people, but I always direct my energy to the back. Like whoever is the 10,001 person at the very back, that person is the person I'm singing to. They got to feel it. And it's palpable. Like, you are a live performer, so you know this feeling. Sometimes the audience just feels like a single person, like it's a feeling, like you're in a conversation. Well, this was so important for me, and I felt it was incredible. And it was just, but let's say a year later, did another show, and a journalist was in the backstage, and she approached me and she says, I was at that show in Sarajevo, and I felt like you were singing just to me. That was the affirmation. I felt it. I sang to 10,000 people. I felt like I was talking to them as individuals, and have somebody tell me a year later they remember the same moment the way that I did was the affirmation. Those kind of affirmations of like, yeah, I'm in my purpose.
And then you go to her, can I quote you on that?
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. That's so beautiful and so powerful. How do you, because you do a lot of shows here in the States, and you also do a lot of shows abroad. Have you found a difference in how you're received domestically versus, when you're in Eastern Europe and when you're in, other parts of the world? Do you feel that there's a difference in how you're received and how you received? I guess
honestly, I know that people can kind of like romanticize the idea, like, well, the audiences in this place are so much better than audiences in that place. But I think it's all about like, it's the same like relationship building, or it's communication. If you know how to connect with people, and you have a way to not to endear themselves to you, then you're going to reach the same points. So I'll tell you a story. and then I'll give a real answer. But I went to China to play, and at the time that I played in China, I was doing these big, like, kind of university halls and theaters and stuff. And I had an anxiety before I went because I was like, they're not going to understand a word of what I'm saying. Like, and I'm singing my originals at that on that tour.
Right.
And I was like, how are they going to feel me? And I was like, you know what? Communication is all about your intention. It's not about the words. If I use the same word but my intention is, like, if I'm saying to you hello, but my intention is I'm going to kill you, then that hello feels totally different than hello, like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 10 years, I'm in love with you. That's the word hello is not what it is, it's the intention.
Right.
How do you project your intention, the message, the story, the tone of what is you're trying to say to your listener? So in China, I just decided, like, this is going to be my important focus on making them feel what I'm trying to say without them understanding my words. And those Chinese audiences clapped in the same exact moments of the songs. The same exact moments of the songs as people who knew the words.
Right.
So when I travel and I go around, you may have like it may take a little longer for the people to warm up, or it might, you know what I mean? Some people are more excited from the get-go than others.
Mm-hmm.
That has to do with their personality, but your ability to communicate with them and bring them in is where it's at. So it's a turn on for me to play in different cultures and environments and figure out how to, like, hook them.
Right. Like it's kind of like the challenge. It's the kind of like part of the puzzle together. Like, okay, let me figure out how to make this happen here.
And then I have the same kind of audience in every situation, because people are people having the human experience.
Yeah. So going back to the early part of the 2000s, you've become your benefit girl. Every time there's a benefit, we need to hire for the benefit. So how did your international career come about, and how did you transition into doing so much touring around the globe?
There were two sides to it. The one side was I would just use all my own money to bring my own band on tour.
Mm-hmm.
I sponsored myself. I mean, I just really became a real full-fledged indie artist, in that, like, I was like, if you're an independent artist, you are an entrepreneur. That if you realize, then if you start to read and learn about small business and how to make your things work as a business, it's you can apply it to being an indie artist. Mm-hmm. I believed in myself, so I invested in myself, and I would pay to take my band on tour. If the promoter couldn't pay the full cost, I would pay the difference, and we would make it work. Because people don't know you're there if you're not there. So you have to start showing up places. If you don't show up places, you're just another talented, amazing person in your garage. Yeah. And so I believed in going on the road. So first time I ever went overseas, I had some relationships that say radio was playing my stuff. So I call up the person that I met online and was like, hey, can you help me book something? And I brought my little 2 guys, because I couldn't afford the whole band. Went over there and then met people, did a bunch of interviews, and started creating relationships in those different territories. Now that became coupled with, I was invited to do, the American government has a budget for culture, believe it or not. The Cultural Affairs Department inside the US State Department provides grants to outsource American culture as a form of diplomacy.
Oh, okay.
To build relationships in regions that maybe have tight, or, have uncomfortable relations with America, or don't have relations at all. So they'll bring a cultural project there to sort of bring something positive.
Right.
I got invited to do a State Department tour the first time, and we did 4 countries in 5 weeks of touring. Now, when you get into this network, what happens is the American embassy in the foreign country is your promoter, and they host you.
Okay.
They'll book me on a legitimate festival stage or the biggest venue in town, and I'll show up. Like, I went to the Philippines for the first time, and we played inside of a mall, because the malls is where people hung out. Like, they didn't go to theaters, they went to malls.
Right.
And when I showed up at this mall I've never been to in my life, there was a 3-story poster of me hanging from the ceiling down to the 3rd floor. Yeah. And it's like incredible, but it's like the American embassy set that structure up.
Yeah.
And so we played all of these venues, and I collaborated with local musicians and artists. And
were you doing mostly original work as well?
Mostly
covers as
no,
well?
those were all my originals. At that point, I was kind of like a purist, like, I can't do cover music, which through time, I've changed my thoughts on that. I could share that later, but I was doing my originals, and we were like on all these stages and festivals with other artists and everything. And with the State Department, they bring you into villages and places that you wouldn't normally have access to. Those people that work in those offices, as American embassy offices, they change countries every 2 to 4 years.
Right.
So it's actually a network of people that change and change and change and change. And if you have a good relationship with them, they call you up as soon as they get to the new country.
And they're like, oh, we want you to come over to, oh, that's really
Yes.
awesome. That's really awesome.
I've done more than a dozen. Huh?
I said, you're very resourceful.
Well, you think is like, we got to open up our minds sometimes. Like, we have a very, we can get kind of like brainwashed by notions of success. Like, you go in this order, this is the order to success.
Mm-hmm.
You get yourself take your, let's say acting, you take your acting classes, then you get yourself an agent, then the agent gets you the auditions, then from the auditions you get cast, and then you get cast, and then you become a movie star.
Right.
And it can only go like this. But we don't always think about the stories like Issa Rae, like starting my own YouTube series and writing my own stories and creating my own characters and casting it myself, then producing it myself, and then getting the budget because they believe in the brand that I created. And then, there's not only one way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was able to monetize a career as a singer, an independent artist, a lot of it on the fringes and outside of the primary industry itself.
Mm-hmm. At the same time that you're doing these, you said you did 12 of these tours? You said?
So the humanitarian tours, I've done more than 12. And then apart from that, I've traveled to like 40 something plus countries, just touring, as a singer.
That's so great. Do you have is there like a place like Hasselhoff is big in Germany? Is there like a place that's like, oh, they love Maya here?
I kind of want to say Croatia, because when I play with Gibonni is the name of the rock artist that I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. He's from Croatia, but former Yugoslavia region includes Macedonia, Bosnia, Slovenia, Montenegro, Serbia. So it's like a whole region there. And he brought me on many tours as a guest vocalist. And every time I play with him, it's like an arena. Like, I played with him last month and in Zagreb, and it was 20,000 people. And then there were two shows. So in 1 week, I played in front of 40,000 people.
So do you have, I've never played an arena. I imagine it's like just having all those people and just the sound of all of those people giving you their energy has to be amazing. Do you have a preference? Like if you know, if I were to say, well, you know, the rest of your career, you're going to be playing clubs, you know, intimate clubs where you can see people in the eyes, or you'll only play arenas. Do you have like a preference to either? Because I mean, they are two different things, and just the way that you interact with the audience, right, is different, just from the simple fact that, you know, when there's 60 people in a room, you know, you can make a different type of a connection than if there's, like you said, 20,000 people in a room.
So the ultimatums are always hard, you know. It's like when someone says, if you could only have one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be? And you're like,
Toast, French toast. If I can eat French toast for the rest of my life, I'll be fine. I'll be the happiest person on the planet. So that's my answer.
how can I give up mole sauce? All right, you know. It's like, I don't know.
So maybe it doesn't have to be an either or, but do you have like a preference, or do you get more out of one than the other? How about that?
I would say I would go for the arenas, because it's so weird talking about myself. I'd rather someone else be talking about me, but my energy is kind of like Freddie Mercury or Mick Jagger, or
so it's just very big. Very big.
Yes. And so I'm really in my zone where I can be as big as I can possibly feel and want to be. And there's no roof. There's nothing just containing it. I can just be like, wah! And it just comes out like thunder. And I love it. I love it. I'm exhilarated by it. But it can also be because I haven't, you know, done, you know, like, I don't know, like if I'm Beyonce and I was doing too many of them in a year, I might be like, I'm so tired of this. Why can't I just play a little spot? You know, maybe it's just how I feel right now.
Talk to me about your recording career. When did you first record? And talk to me about just how your recordings and the things that you decide that you want to put down for, you know, posterity. Talk to me just about how that's evolved and your process there.
Since I started,
is that too big? Is that too big? I realized I asked you like kind of two very, like that's kind of broad.
Yeah, I mean, I can poetically interpret your question and like just I don't know. I'll just try to answer. I mean, I started to record a long time ago because I started young and I was writing, and I went to this high school with all these other artists and stuff. So I started to learn how to record a long time ago. But really finding my own voice as a writer and as a recording artist, as a recorded voice, you know, it took time to develop. And I felt like I've done a lot of singles, a lot of digital singles, you know, a lot, but I have only 4 fully fleshed out recording projects.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like 4 albums.
Right.
And the most recent one is just a few months ago. So I felt like I was step by step going closer and closer to saying what I meant to say on recording. You know what I mean? Like capturing it the way I saw it in my head.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the side effects of being an independent artist are many, you know, good and bad, but the bad side of it is like my vision can be really big, but I didn't have the means to achieve it financially, let's say. And so I'm like just stretching and stretching ever forward towards trying to say it the way I had meant to say it, or express it the way I had meant to express it, or have it come out the way I saw it in my head. And so, I mean, process about recording, I don't
Well,
know. I mean,
just
yeah.
just your the what you choose to what you choose to record. Like, you know, when you put together, say, like a full album, do you kind of think of an overall overarching concept, or, you know, is it just is it a collection just of songs that you've, you know, feel something about and that you've written
I've
over?
done both. I've done both, but I have come to the conclusion that it is much better to have a concept. For example, I think that every good song deserves to exist. So let's say I'm writing songs and I'm like, gosh, this song is like so folk singer-songwriter. And then the next song is like, it sounds like an arena rock song. They don't belong on the same album, let's say. But once I'll just try to create without censoring myself. And
Mm,
then I need to look objectively at all the things I've created. Let's say I've written 20 things. Then I look and I say, wow, like 6 of these really do sound like they belong together. And these 3 sound like they belong together, but on a different project. And the
right.
remaining 5, they sound like they belong together, but on another project. And then I group together the ones that sound like they belong together. And then now that I have direction that I can understand, then I can flesh it out or revise it, edit it down to something that can be branded and packaged, something that it's like I'm cooking. Just because I like all these different kinds of foods, it doesn't mean they all need to be on the plate at the same time. If
Totally.
you really want to enjoy the palate, create a palate and say today is going to be a fish, and that fish goes with the white wine, and the white wine is going to be with the greens, and this is going to be a plate. The other plate could
No
be
French toast with mole sauce.
the other will be no, yeah, exactly. Does it like French toast with mole and like spinach and like coffee with red wine, and it's like it's just not enjoyable. And you realize that this is a communication industry as well, so it's not just you expressing yourself. You are trying to express yourself to be received by
Right.
someone. So it doesn't hurt as an artist to realize that branding is not a waste of time. It actually allows people to consume what you're offering in a way that they can absorb and appreciate.
Totally.
And
Totally.
so why would I try to separate? And it's not about being controlled by some outside source. It's about my end game is that I would love people to actually eat the food that I've made.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's right. And I think that's where a lot of people, and not just art, well, a lot of artists, right? And across all disciplines, right? Musicians, writers, right? We forget that at the end of the day, this is adjacent. I mean, it's still a service industry, right?
It's a business.
And you have to think about your customer or your client, and like what would appeal to them, and like you said, how they will receive you, right? What do they say? Like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I understand like the artist, generally we want to be free, and we want, not to be told what to do, and we don't want to be, put into a box, which I respect. But we also need to like not be in complete denial of reality. The minute that I want to make $1 for what I've done, it goes from art for art's sake to being a business.
Right.
So then we can't say, hey, I want you to pay for this, and then be mad that there are any kind of parameters.
Yeah.
There are parameters which make it easy to be sold, easier. And it doesn't mean sell out. It just means understand the dynamics of how do you get it from my garage to being something that the outside world can interact with and appreciate and
want to appreciate. Yeah, absolutely. And talk of that brand and personal brand, I feel like that's become over the last like 20 years, probably the word brand is probably one of the most overused words in the world. But with that idea of like your personal brand as an artist, was that initially like a challenge for you to kind of figure out how do I best articulate when I'm selling myself, whether it's to the audience, whether it's to a new promoter who I'm trying to get me to book me, like really kind of pinning down what brand Maya Azucena.
Yes. I got confused in the beginning, and I think some things that I learned. One of the things that I had to really come to terms with is that you have to respect the language of the person you're speaking to. And I'm talking from the business side, not just audience. I thought that the most important thing was that music could connect with people and people would cry when they heard it and they loved it and it made them feel emotional, and because it was my top priority. So I would go into a meeting with an A&R person or some kind of executive producer and talking about how the music is gonna make people feel good, and they're looking at me like, and why am I talking to this girl? Because at the end of the day, the language.
Like, how many audience members can you guarantee?
How is this going to make me money? And I had this big aha, like, dude, like, like I'm going into a room, their language is totally different than mine, and I need to be aware of the language of the room that I'm going into. And if you are really with, in this game, you have to know who you're talking to and be able to speak that language or translate your language into their language.
Right.
How can making people feel good make me money?
Right.
That's just being intelligent, business intelligent, being aware of like what you're dealing. So, so I feel like I went too long, like not realizing that, because I'm so like, I don't know, idealistic maybe. And I'm thinking everybody's in the we are the world, like, no, and everybody's not that. Everybody likes to feel that, but that's not their daily priority. They want to know, what's this got to do with me, and how's it going to benefit me and my people, and what you're going to, this is the business side.
Totally.
And I need to be able to translate what I'm doing in a language that can be, effective in those environments.
Yeah. So how would you, if you were to describe, if you were your own publicist, or if you were a fan of yourself and you said, oh my God, you've got to check out Maya Azucena, how would you describe brand Maya the entertainer, Maya the performer, Maya's show, what the Maya experience is?
The other day I was like also trying to like, because my mom used to use this term, the je ne sais quoi, which it's like, the I don't know what, but she really meant like, that like thing that you can't put your finger on, but that
like the
makes
essence of whatever it is. Yeah.
Or the it thing, the it quality, the thing that it's not a tangible thing, it's an intangible thing, which makes people feel and drawn to it, and they respond to it. And there is something in what I do that has that, and that is coupled with having a 4-octave range and having a powerful voice, which goes easily between genres, dances between genres easily and effortlessly, and very, able to put an emotion and a passion inside of the voice, but make you feel intimate with it at the same time. The stage show is very energized, but draws you into. But I was trying to think like, okay, what's the elevator pitch? I was like, there's soul music, but I was like, but I do touch soul music.
Touch soul music. I like that. That's good.
It's not, it's like, yeah, I have like this kind of drawing from my ancestors' depth to the voice, which has this blues and soul in it. But I can do that in many different genre settings, from electronic music to hip hop to rock and roll, and it still feels all like me when you hear it, like the way Prince played with genres and would do like a girly pop song and then immediately do a electric guitar solo with rock and then is a gospel song.
Yeah.
But it was all Prince, and it all made sense to you because it was him.
Yeah.
So
Yay, touch soul music. I really like that. Well, I could sit here and talk to you forever, but we're actually coming to the end of our time together. But a question for you, and I don't know, just in all that we've been talking, do you miss acting?
I do, but guess what? I have some acting, stuff that's on the horizon. It came back. I always thought it would come back, and it has. And I even did, by the way, an off-Broadway musical, independent musical, which did a 5-week run at 59 East 59th Street Theater in New York City. And I was nominated as Best Lead Actress in a Musical by the Adelco. They're like a New York
I know
City.
Adelco. Yes, that's exciting. That's wonderful.
And it was exciting because I hadn't acted in a while, and then I was acknowledged for my acting, and then I've been invited to do a couple of more things. So it's actually kind of coming back, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's coming like,
That's
nice.
exciting. So you're gonna have to come back and let us know about all of these things once they're at the place where you can talk about them. Before we go, tell us a little bit about your EP and a bit about what you're going to be doing in New York on the 14th.
First of all, before you have to run, I just want to say it was such a wonderful conversation. I'm really happy that we've reconnected. So let's not let this be the last.
Indeed.
Another thanks for
right?
no, we're not going to do that again. Hey everyone, so my latest EP is a 6-song offering called I Am Enough. And I think it most epitomizes my feel and messaging. And it's just an empowerment, inspirational, 26 minutes of your life. So it mixes kind of a big beat, backing drum and bass with my voice in the center, and song like Warrior and Chameleon and You Are Not Alone. So it's on all the digital platforms. As long as you know my name and you know I Am Enough, you can easily find it on Spotify, etc. And I'll be debuting all these songs live with a full concert in New York City on Friday the 14th at a 100-year-old newly renovated theater in Brooklyn called the BMS Playhouse, one door over from BAM, 2 blocks from Barclays Center. So, yeah.
So this is easy to get to. There's no reason everyone shouldn't be there.
Exactly. And just, you can find all the details about just staying in touch with me and what I'm up to. I think I post most consistently on Instagram, but just as long as you know Maya Azucena, my name, you can find me.
Wonderful. Well, I am so excited for everything that you have going on. Hopefully I can even make it on the 14th. I have to look at my calendar to see what's happening that week. I can't believe it's April already. Not for nothing. What's happening? It's like this month is going by so quickly.
You're right. It's charging forward, and charging forward. I don't know.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you so much. And I look forward to catching up with you again really, really soon. And thank you all out there in Radio Land for joining us for another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Hassel and friends. And we will catch you next week on another episode right here on Hot 702.5 FM, Las Vegas. Hi there, it's Jordan Van Haslo. I don't know if you know this, but everyone's favorite radio show and podcast is now available on Spotify. That's right. Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends, my weekly one-on-one chat with some of the most interesting people I know in entertainment and the arts, can now be streamed on Spotify. I share real estate with Joe Rogan. Click on the link and be sure to subscribe. And don't miss us live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas.